Hello.
Hello. Greetings. Today, we're going to talk about some bullshit. No, I'm just kidding. What am I? Today, what?
Nothing.
Okay. Today we're going to talk about kind of, I would say a very important mechanism that we need in this arm and guillotine fight, because sometimes we fuck up and our arm and guillotine sucks, and our positioning sucks, and we can't sweep them or choke them. If I can't sweep them and I can't choke them, I gotta do something. Okay? We're going to show a lot of different applications of this in a very short chunk of time. It's a very simple movement, but its applications are very multifaceted. There's really two movements that we want to focus on. I'm going to start from the front headlock because it's the simplest way to demonstrate this, and then I'll show why this is very relevant to everything that we're going to do. Get you to the front headlock. So I get Mike in the front headlock. There are two basic mechanisms I want to apply. Let me get you down to your elbows, please. You figure the front headlock, I have the arm that's around the neck, and I have the arm that's around the arm. Make sense, guys? Y'all with me? Okay? So, we talked on Monday how one of the powerful aspects of this front headlock situation is that I basically, because of the way that my arms are positioned, have them kind of like positioned really well for the upper body end of a front roll, in the sense of if Mike wants to front roll, we talked about how he has to make three things happen. He has to look under one armpit, he has to take the opposite shoulder of that armpit lower than the armpit shoulder, and then he has to bring his hips over his shoulders, and that's a front roll, right? So if we go back to the front headlock, the power of the front headlock positioning, that head and arm control, is that I have the ability basically to force two of those things to happen, and all I have to do then is elevate his hips. Okay? So what we're going to do is kind of use that, but a little differently. So instead of thinking of so much a front roll, let's assume that his hips are so heavy that I can't lift him up, right? I can't take him over, okay? I'm not going to necessarily be able to get him forward, right, over that corner. Does that make sense, y'all? However, what I do possess is still the ability to, I'm going to do this, just be ready for some pressure on your neck, to push the head down through the armpit hole and lift his shoulder up, right? You guys see that? So the first mechanism that we want to work on is just simply taking his head under his armpit and taking his shoulder over his other shoulder. And what this will force him to do is eventually collapse to the far shoulder. So in the sense of, I have the front headlock, I'm using my elbow to kind of cradle his head, and I'm using my overhook arm in his armpit to lift his shoulder up, right? So that's perfect thing, is lifting this up. So when I put that together, if his hips are really heavy and I can't like force a front roll, what I can is make it nice and heavy, is I can bump him to his side. Does that make sense, guys? Furthermore, so we go back to front headlock. What if I told you ever seen them clips of like Jonathan Frakes from Star Trek where he's like, have you ever tried this? You know? Anyway, it's funny, watch it, it's like a, anyway. Like, what if I told you, have you ever tried to front headlock dump somebody in the opposite direction? And the answer is I can. I don't have the same levers of control as far as to force the front roll, but I kind of have a different thing. I'm here. I can still use this shoulder kind of to lift him up. I don't have as much power though. But what is very important, can I get you guys to circle so you can see this arm? This is very important. Very important stuff here. Very important nuances. Is that my dump, so if I'm here, I'm connecting my hands, is going to come as a result of taking this elbow, so if I can pick your elbow up off the floor, and pushing it in here, right? How, pray tell, shall I accomplish this goal? Well, it's very simple. It's this simple. Let me get back to front headlock. Is if I try to move his arm at his tricep, don't let me move this. As you can see from my struggle sounds, this is very challenging. Instead, I go down, so you're getting resistance, right? I go down to the elbow, and it slips. So go back, up at the tricep. This ain't shit. Ain't shit. I go down to the tricep, or down to the elbow, easy. So we go back. So I'm juxtaposing bumping his collarbone up in the air with bumping his elbow to the floor. Why is this important? Okay, sure, this is great in the front headlock. I can move him around. What if I told you that you could do this from the guard as well?
Yes.
We're in the arm and guillotine. We're here. I fall into the choke side. But man, I suck. I can't choke this guy. And I'm trying to, maybe he settled his hips, and I just don't feel like I can get my foot in here. And he's kind of pulling his head free, and I'm like, oh shit, I'm going to lose this fight. Well, guys, look. Boom. I just bump him over. What's his response? Exactly. Reset. Work for the choke. Put a pin in that. We're going to talk about that. Actually, let's get to it now. What did we say happens on Monday when I elevator sweep them over me? What did we say happens to the choke situation if his chin is tucked?
Goes away.
Huh?
You lose it.
Lose it, right? His neck opens up, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, Mike, do me a favor.
Yes.
Be inside of arm and guillotine opponent's arm and guillotine. Right?
With no one here?
Yeah, but like tuck your chin, protect yourself. Now fall to your right shoulder. Right? Come back up to your knees. Right? Why did your neck just open up? Right? Like they're, exactly, right? He's trying to re-scramble, recalibrate. So the important nuance here, guys, is that if I bump him to his side, so we go back, okay, the choke isn't firing, the elevator sweep isn't presenting itself, I feel like I'm losing his neck. Boom, I just bumped him over. He comes up to his knees. You can ask Mike, I just got under his chin.
Yeah.
Right? Literally, all I did was he just created that little space. When we start getting into transferring to naked guillotines, this is going to become really helpful. Right? Just this little mechanism. Okay? So first and foremost, our first application of this idea is that, like, I don't have to necessarily do this dramatic elevator sweep. Okay, he's moving around, he's creating situations that don't feel familiar, like comfortable. I bump him to his shoulder. Right? Let's say I don't want to be underneath anymore. Let's say I want to get back to a front headlock. We're here. You know? We're tussling. I fell. I start losing it. Bump him. He comes up to his knees. Go ahead. I can use my knees. Boom. There's my transfer. We'll talk about that more when we get to that. I hit that finish on like so many people. That is such an effective transition right there. We'll get to it. So pretty simple, right? I bump him to his shoulder and I take advantage of him coming back up on the come up. He's going to open up his neck. Now, there's a very important other thing that because we established I can take them the other way. Why is that relevant? Well, folks, what if I told you that sometimes we suck and we go to the wrong side? Meaning, instead of pulling into the guard and getting my shoulder of the choke side on the floor, I, like an idiot, pull to the guard and get the overhook side to the floor. Well, shit. This sucks. Now, dude, he can pass my guard stupid easy. Look at him passing my guard. No! Oh! As you can see, I'm quite discombobulated. Right? And sometimes even, if you're particularly stupid, you might get the leg of the choke grip stuck inside, but you're falling. Grab you. You've fallen to this shoulder. Like, look at this. Does this look like it's anything to this person? This is awful, right? Well, here's the thing, guys. Let's go back to the other side first. So I fall into the overhook side, right? Okay. He hops to pass. Go ahead. Boom. What's his response?
Turn back.
Right, he gets to his knees. There's my choke. See what I'm saying? The point being is the mechanism that we want to apply here is strictly like, I'm going to use this bumping tool to force him to a shoulder and a hip. They will almost always turn back to face you. Sometimes they'll try to like turn away. I don't feel like that's a particularly effective path forward, but I guess I should touch on it just in case. Let me grab you.
Tuck you over.
Yeah, so basically we'll go real slow. Let's say we're going, boom, I bumped you over and you like pulled over me. It's like just go with it. You know, like just gator roll with the guy. You'll probably get the front headlock. But more often than not, they're going to try to turn their face back into you. So the first thing we're working on today, guys, and really the main crux of today's lesson, is just using this head and arm control to bump your opponent and bully them around. So Mike, can I grab you so you can see all that?
Yes.
So again, we need to do that in a turtle. So from the front headlock, it's two mechanisms. One is if I'm taking him towards the choke side, I'm still doing that same front roll bump. It's just normally what will happen is his hips are real heavy, so I take him lateral rather than a forward roll, right? So we're here. If I tried to forward roll Mike because his hips are so heavy, it won't work. But if I take him sideways, he move up to his shoulder instead, right? If that's not accessible, my objective on the other side is to lift up the collar and tuck the elbow and take him that way. So putting that into context, if we end up arm and guillotine on the choke side, he's fighting to get free. I don't feel like I can get my foot in this elevator situation, like it's just too wound tight. He turns to his knees, and if I'm so inclined, there's a transition to a really clean guillotine right there. Again, we'll focus more on that later. Alternatively, what if I suck and I ended up like all sorts of discombobulated here, and now I don't really feel like I have anything. He starts trying to pass. I'm bumping his shoulder to the ground. I'm up. There's my chin. Does that make sense, guys?
Mm-hmm.
That starfish instinct, the same thing we did when we elevated them. Guys, work on that now. Cultivate that today. Just anytime you bump someone, you feel like, be actively always, remember, we're talking about loose wrists, right? Actively looking, if they create space, take it. Let's play around with it. 1, 2, 3.